Welcome to the Miles to Zen podcast. I'm so glad you've found us this week. Today, we are in for a really fun conversation with Shannon Takacs. She was a guest on the podcast earlier this year. Shannon is a death doula as well as an astrologer. And last time we talked about her role as a death doula and had a surprisingly uplifting conversation about grief and loss. And this week, we are talking to the astrologer side of Shannon, and it is so fun. I think you'll love this conversation. I know I loved it. And so without any delay, let's jump into our chat. Shannon, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I love being here. Thanks, Shannon. Thanks for having me and being curious about astrology and being a death doula.
Well, it's really fun. And we were having such a great conversation before we started here about astrology. And so, Shannon, why don't you introduce yourself and then we'll give a little bit of background onto why you're on the podcast today.
Okay, sounds good. So, hi, I'm Shannon, and I met you because you reached out to me for a birth chart reading, and I guess you had a good experience with that. And so that's how we met, and I've been studying astrology since 2020. So while we were all, hanging out inside a lot, ended up listening to a podcast with Deborah Silverman, and I'd always been very interested in astrology, like all my life, but just kind of like hokey interest, reading my horoscope, and I'm a very strong Leo. And so I always had these fantastic horoscopes because Leos like to have a lot of fun. So they were always quite funny. And I don't know, it just really resonated with me a lot in a fun kind of way. But when I listened to this one podcast, it really grabbed my curiosity of like, oh, could this actually be like legit? Because I always thought it was just kind of fun and silly. And then I went down the rabbit hole. My curiosity is extra large, kind of like yours. And I went down this rabbit hole over the weekend. Next thing you know, I had signed up to do a level 1 and a level 2 of studying astrology. And let's just say the rest is history. So here we are. And I love it. And it's so fun. And I think I have a little bit of a different, I think my birth chart readings are infused with a lot of optimism. I'm a raging Sagittarius, so I definitely see things through rose-colored glasses. So I'm like this human cheerleader for living our best life, living your best life based on the chart that I see. Whereas I think a lot of people get stuck in the negative attributes of signs and such. And
Right.
I just don't see it that way. Like I'm without like bypassing and saying, oh, everything's wonderful and glorious. No, it's just I see the potential. That's the word I was looking for. The potential in like, look at this juicy chart. Tell me about it, So it's really been a fun journey and I've learned a lot and it's fun.
I feel that exactly what you're talking about. I used to be someone who loved reading my daily horoscope, and there was a coffee shop near where I lived, and they would print out the daily horoscope for everybody and tape it to the front desk. And
Far out.
And I'm a symbol creature in many ways. In many ways not, I suppose. That would make me want to go to that coffee shop just because I thought that was super fun. And my feeling there was always, if it resonates with me, I like it, I'll believe. If it doesn't, I don't believe. I've come a long way since then in that I've just become, I think thanks to you, in fact, because we did a birth chart reading a few years back.
Yeah.
And it was so, well, it was so fun, but it was so uplifting. And so many things in there were quite astonishing to me that, oh, holy smokes, how does she know this?
Yeah.
So then it just got me thinking a lot more about this. Mm-hmm. And I'm clearly not alone because I was just doing some market research on this area, the market for astrology. And it's gone up from like 12 billion in 2021, and it's heading up to 26 billion or something by 2031. It's
And what's the billion represent? Sorry.
a billion US dollars in
Oh
market
my
share, like how much of a market this is, and that it's really increasing. Oh, I've got the numbers here.
dollars.
Yeah, going up to a $14.3 billion US market in 2024 and going to a $25.6 billion market by 2034. And then this other one talked about apps, and that apps are growing at almost 25% from a $4 billion industry to a $29 billion industry by 2033. And this is just apps. There's a lot of reasons for this happening, this interest by so many more people, but I'm going to leave it there with that and talk about how. So you talked about that you were super curious and you ended up taking this class, and then how did you start giving readings to people? And I did a reading again for my birthday last year. And I tell you, it is the funnest thing. It is so fun. And I feel like uplifted. And this is something that will be part of my birthday day going forward. So Shannon, book me for my birthday.
I love that. I love that. That's so cool. Yeah, I find it just simply validating. Like, that's the word I would use the most. How did I go from studying to giving readings? Well, the reason that I signed up for the level 1 and level 2, the level 2 was stated in their outline is like, if you do level 2, you will be able to give readings at the end of that. And that intrigued me because that's like a language course. When they say you can be fluent in 2 weeks, I'm like, huh, is that real?
Well, it does very much feel like a brand new language.
Oh,
like so much of this stuff feels it's
trust
hard to wrap my head around. And then I'm listening to people talk, some other people talk about it, and they talk about, well, you have to be good at math to be an astrologer because there is a lot of math. And I guess we'll pull up an example chart where there's lots of different degrees and such, but
There's so much software. You don't need to be good at math. Are you kidding me? Everything is just on an app, just like you said. It's on an app. You don't like, yes, years ago when you had to actually know math because there was no software and no computers. I don't even know how they did it back then. That would be mind-boggling. But no, you don't need to know math. So I did the level 1 and then I signed up for level 2 too. So and it became clear and it is a language. So when I say, oh, I just did level 1 and level 2, like, yeah, I did those courses and then I was sitting at my table for a solid year learning the language because it was not easy for me. Like, it was not easy and I was so curious and I thought I had a pretty good understanding of like a few basic things in astrology, but it was a lot to learn and I forget actually how hard it was for me to like assimilate all that information into my brain as a language. And luckily I have learned a second language because I lived abroad in my late 20s and I focused on learning that language. And so I understood the arc of learning a language where it kind of goes like flatline and you feel like you're not getting anywhere. And then all of a sudden there's like level of literacy that you get all excited about. And then you listen to the radio more and you try to. So I had that experience. So I knew if I just sat at my table and studied, I would eventually become fluent in this language. And now I can't hear like people tell me things and all I can hear is like the signs or what I know I will find in their chart when I open up their chart if I get so lucky. But I can just hear what people like I just hear it. It's a language that's in my brain now and it is pretty fun and funny and accurate. I mean, there's sometimes where I think, do I really believe this? Like, do I? But when the math keeps showing up and the accuracy keeps being there until I'm proven otherwise, yeah, it's accurate. Maybe it's just one of those other patterns in the world, like our life is full of patterns and we don't understand them from our human brain, but they seem to be existing out there in the world. And maybe it's just another pattern because I also learned early days. I did a couple readings for a young girl in her 20s and she was really into tarot, but her mom bought her this present for a reading and I gave her the reading and she gave me some feedback at the end. I'm like, I hope that was nice. Like, la, la, la. She sent me a text after and she said that was amazing. And it lined up exactly with what my tarot was saying. And that struck me as interesting. And then she bought a reading for a girlfriend of hers, again, a young woman in her 20s who was really into tarot, same feedback. And I thought, okay, interesting. It's just another language. Like you could be into numerology, you could be into tarot, you could be into whatever other patterns exist out there. And for me, astrology really just landed for me. And it might not for somebody else, but it looks like it did for you. It's just another language for the gifts of the universe, for helping us to understand ourselves. And for me, that's the most valuable thing about understanding and getting a chart reading is it's validation for how you show up without changing anything about you. And that sounds maybe like wild or unlikely, but it's like, when you go to a counseling appointment and you want to work on something like, why am I so impatient? Or why am I so greedy? Or like, I don't know, like whatever that word choice is. And a birth chart reading is kind of the opposite. It's just like, here's what I see. Here's how you should show up. Or do you show up this way? But here's the energy in the chart that I see. Tell me. And it's kind of like a validation slip to be all that you came in to be, is basically what it is. So I have tons of fire. So my grief comes out in anger first, right? I get really, really mad about all the injustices in the world, and you'll see me get really mad. I don't get crybaby. Like I'm not like weepy. I'm like mad. And so for me, I never really was bothered by that, but someone could be bothered by that, especially being a female in this patriarchal world of ours where we're not really supported to be angry and have a bunch of rage living in us. Just like men aren't supported to have a bunch of emotion externally brought forward. We don't really love that or support it in our patriarchal society. But if I was not loving that aspect about myself, if I got a birth chart reading, I'd be like, oh, fire, 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 and more fire. I guess that's a hot, passionate mess,
Yeah. And I'm like, air.
Yeah. Which is why you have a podcast and you enjoy talking and you enjoy and that curiosity that you have, right? So anyways, that's a long-winded way of saying it's just a validation slip to be all that you came in here to be, not be ashamed of any of it, and go live it. Go do it. Go be it. Go
Yeah.
feel it.
And what I found about our sessions together, and some of our chats where you're like, wait a second, I think I have your chart. Let me just pull up your chart again. And we were talking about something totally different. And I find that awesome and hilarious. Yeah. And even if what I experienced from our conversations is, even if I didn't know that we were talking about astrology, the things that you bring up felt like a coaching session. And like you said, like having a cheerleader on your side that can remove some layers and help you see things from a different perspective, often clearing up your own thinking and seeing. And then you layer back the astrology and you're like, huh, well, isn't that interesting? So I would say to any listeners who are not bought into astrology, and I don't think you need to be, I think you just need to be curious and be willing to just bring some joy and some new perspective and some new possibilities into your life. And so if we think of it from there, why don't we give people who may not be super familiar with astrology some astrology 101? Like there's the fire, air, water, signs.
Yeah. Cool. We'll do that. One thing I want to say is thanks for that really nice compliment. I did one of the best testimonials that somebody ever gave me, or one of my favorites, not the best, but one of my favorites was immediate response in text right after. She said, that was better than all the counseling I've ever had in my adult life. Like that one birth chart reading was so informative and like pushed aside things I was working on. And it's just like, well, that's just Mars like in a square with Saturn. Like it's just that vibe that you're going to get and just now know what it is and know who's going to be in charge of that conversation, Anyways, I love that testimonial.
I mean, I think it's one hell of a testimonial that I book you on my birthday at 8:00 because it's just such a fun way to start my day.
I think it's such a great birthday gift. I think it's such a good
to me with love for me.
Yeah. I think that's so great. So not to toot my own horn, but yeah, cheerleading coach. I don't know. Like, I'm such a cheerleader. Like, if I always joke with everybody, like, who's the person the loudest at the triathlons or the swim meets or the everything? It's me. And I should start a business as a cheerleader and rent myself out
Right.
because
Yeah. Okay. Well, when we're on the island for a volleyball tournament, we'll be calling you and I'll be like, cheer for this guy, Shan.
call me. I love it. I do it naturally. It's like one of my strongest gifts. Anyways, especially for kids, because I love kids. But anyway, okay, so let's break down astrology like 101. So there is like four elements: water, air, earth, and fire. So that's just a generalization of where you're going to find a bunch of planets doing a dance in elements. And then another layer that we throw on top of that, which most people are familiar with, is your sun sign, which is just your birthday. So you're a Leo, you're a Virgo, you're a Libra, you're a Scorpio. There's 12 of them. And that gives me an indication of attributes I'm going to find when your sun lives in, let's just say Pisces or Scorpio or Taurus. And then another layer of the language is if we have a birth time, we will be able to split the zodiac circle, pie, I call it, into 12 pieces of pie. There's 12 zodiac signs. If we have a birth time, we can then split the pie up into pieces of pie. And that not only gives us houses, it also gives us a rising sign. And it doesn't matter if you don't know your birth time. It's not critical because most of the language, all of the language is in the planets. But if we have the birth time, it's like making soup. All the dialogue is there, the onion, the celery, the butter, the whatever you put in your soup. But we can just make it more flavorful if we have the birth sign, because when we can slice up that pie into pieces, we can see where the sun sign lives. So our sweet little Pisces sun lives in such and such a house, giving us another layer of information. And then there's another layer of information, which is what do the planets represent, right? So there's Mars, there's Venus, there's Mercury, there's Saturn, there's Jupiter. So it is a layered language, and it starts with the elements, then it moves up to the like your zodiac sign, like the 12 zodiac signs. And then it can be, if we have the birth sign, then adding another layer of what the houses, where all these planets land in certain houses, which will give it certain attributes. And then our rising sign is just a fun little extra ditty too. And the most, like, you'll hear commonly in the line of social media and or I don't know, just depends where you hang out, but you'll hear oftentimes a thing called the big three. And what people mean by the big three is what's your sun sign, what's your moon sign, and what's your rising sign. Again, if you know your birth time, you will have a rising sign. If you don't know your birth time, you won't be able to have a rising sign. But if you hear people say, hey, what's your big three? It's like, oh, I'm a Leo sun, I'm a Capricorn moon, I'm a Virgo rising, you know? So you can
Yeah.
just rattle it off. And for people that have a little bit of an understanding of what that means, it says a lot. It says, I'm fun or I'm seeking fun. Not that I'm fun. I'm seeking fun at all costs. I love children. I love creativity. La 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 la. My Capricorn moon is riddled with responsibility and like, making me the CEO of my mom's care. So like I can handle that responsibility. I can do that, but I'm always seeking fun. And then the Virgo rising in me is trying to systemize my reality, which is a challenge because our rising sign isn't like something that we are naturally born into doing well or naturally. So that's kind of like, how's that? How's
Okay.
that?
That's cool. So I'm a triple Libra.
Yeah.
What does that tell you?
Triple Libra would tell me that you're very much about others. Libras always want peace and harmony at all costs. They're very conflict avoidant and don't really enjoy conflict. They're very aesthetically driven and love how things are put together, not just in clothing, but just in everything, in how they style a room, in how they build a house, in how their office space is set up. Like it's a feeling. It has to be just so, the matchy, 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 matchy. And then ultimately, Libra are mediators and conflict resolution people in our world, right? Because they can quickly find the balance of the two disparating, is that a word? Disparating? Anyways, like the opposite ends of a thing, they can quickly narrow into what what's the story here? They can quickly get to the middle. So typically people that like human rights lawyers or something like that, they're very much focused on justice and equality for everybody. These are, likely a large part of our activism in our communities and such. But that's what I would say, just quickly, without looking at your chart or anything, those are a lot of Libra attributes. Very focused on others and relationships. Codependency hell at the worst. Codependency. Yep.
And I think, yeah, that's super fun. And then if that stuff resonates with you and if you are interested, then looking at your whole chart brings in all these different layers. Because, when you go and look at your horoscope and you're like, this doesn't really sound like me.
Yeah.
And then there's the other, your rising and your moon sign.
Yeah.
But then there's all this other stuff going on.
Yeah. And I should explain that a little bit too. Like when I talk about the big three, so the sun sign is how you show up in the world. It's literally your vitality, the energy that you walk into a room with. So a water sign will be a little bit more introverted than a Leo sign. A Leo sign will come into your room and, shine typically. Yeah. So our sun sign is how we show up. It's our energy, it's our vitality. It's like what drives our purpose, like who we are, right? But our moon sign is the total opposite. It's our private world of emotions. It's our emotional landscape. It's our instinctual reactions to emotional landscapey type things like joy and grief, right? So our moon sign is how do we feel? So for instance, I have a Capricorn moon. It's not a very good placement for a moon sign because Capricorns want to work and we want to be disciplined and responsible, but our moon sign wants to cry. Like our moon sign is most exalted, most happiest when it's in a water sign, Scorpio, what are our water signs? Pisces and Cancer, right? And our Cancer moon sign people, they're really emotional. Typically, they cry at happy and sad things all day long, right? So our moon sign wants to feel, it wants to emote, but in an earth sign, it wants to do, it wants to be practical. Like your moon sign, earth, like your people with a moon sign in an earth sign, Taurus, Capricorn, or what's the other one? Taurus, Capricorn. What am I jamming on this?
Virgo.
Virgo, thank you. They want to do, they want to be of service, they want to act, right? So these are the first responder people. These are like a lot of the EMTs, right? You call 911. You do this, do that. Meanwhile, the water signs are over on the sidewalk crying their eyes out because they've just been traumatized by something, right? So our moon sign is like our nurturing. How do we nurture ourselves? How do we like to be nurtured? But it's also our very instinctual reaction to good and bad things, like our emotional landscape, right?
Right.
And also what makes us feel safe and secure. So those are things that live around a moon sign. And then our rising sign, I always say it's like another cloak we wear, but it's actually more like how others see us. So for instance, I'm a Virgo rising. I can never feel organized enough because Virgos are just like they just need to systemize their realities so badly, right? And I am not that naturally, but people would say I am. My friends would say, "You are so organized. What are you talking about?" But internally, I don't feel that. So our rising sign is a cloak that we wear, but it is how others see us, and even though we don't see ourselves like that. It's very tricky. And it's a dialogue. Like you can have your sun sign and then your moon sign is jamming and then your rising sign is doing something. And so it's interesting for me to see someone's birth chart because I can see, well, where are the conflicts in this energy and where are the natural attributes in this energy? Like, where does it flow naturally? Where are the harmonious dialogues? Like, what are you doing well? And where are your conflict points? For instance, I have a challenging aspect from my moon to a planet called Saturn, which is constantly in confusion with doing better, doing it well, or wanting to go have fun and like screw all that, So I'm in constant, like, if a kid showed up at my door wanting a little golf competition in my backyard, I would drop all my like actual adult things and be like, awesome, let's go have fun. I'm always in conflict with fun and being responsible. There's a lot of language in a birth chart. That's all I can say. And it's really, I find it, well, you do too, very valuable to
Yeah.
understand like, oh, that's just that thing happening again, where I can choose to sit at my table and do my personal administration work and rebook the kid at my gate for a play date 3 hours from now when I've done my work.
Right.
Always choose the fun. Because my Capricorn moon, who wants to be dutiful and responsible and everything, lives. This is another layer of when it lives in a house. What can it tell you? Mine lives in the fifth house, which is infused with more Leo energy. So I'm already a really, really big Leo because I have 4 planets in Leo. And so when my moon also lives in a planet infused with Leo, it is really a challenge for me to say no to fun and yes to being responsible. I'm just a kid. I'm just a kid at heart. Just give me all the fun, and that is living my best life. But unfortunately, we have personal administration and banking that we have to do and
But we can definitely see this, especially when we're doing a birth chart reading with you.
yeah,
You're living your best life when you're giving somebody a birth chart reading, because you can tell it just lights you up. You're having such fun.
it is so true.
Maybe we can show people what a birth chart actually looks like. And there's tons of, I think, apps out there.
Okay. So here we have this is what a chart looks like. There's red lines, there's blue lines, there's green dotted lines, there's a sun sign, there's a moon sign, there's a rising sign, and we have a rising sign because we know this person's birth time. So the black strong lines carve up the pie into quadrants, and the lighter black lines serve it up into pieces slash the thing we call houses. And when we have a lot of planets living in the fifth house, this gives me an indication of attributes that live in the fifth house. When we have a moon sign in the seventh house, again, more attributes. These are all the zodiac signs. The houses again give certain attributes. And then these black emoticons that you see filtered all around the chart are the actual planets in the sky at your birth time or on your birthday if you don't have the time. And they give another language as well. And when you see that the zodiac signs are all in different colors, it just means the yellow is an air sign, the green is an earth sign, the red is a fire sign, and the blue is a water sign. So this is Leo, Cancer, Gemini, Taurus, Aries, Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, Sagittarius, Scorpio, Libra.
And then do the lines inside correspond then to the fire signs, air signs? Like
the lines
the red
inside.
lines and the blue lines?
They're not, no, they're planet driven. So for
Okay.
instance, this is Neptune, a short square red line to this planet is Jupiter. There's a conversation there. This short red line from Jupiter to Saturn, another conversation there. A
It
long
looks
red
like a
line from,
pyramid.
pardon?
It looks like a pyramid shape.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a triangle, red triangle, and this, yeah, again, more language. I would ask this person, hey, so tell me about X, Y, and Z feelings here, because this is the storyline I'm seeing, and how does this live in your life? The long blue lines are harmonious dialogue. So anything along blue line is going to and coming from is a naturally occurring energy in someone's chart. It's like, oh, is it possible that you have X, Y, and Z going on in your life? Because that's what I see. Short blue line is something like flow, and it is harmonious, but you need to pump it, kind of like the guy on the train track where you have to pump that machine and he goes rolling down the track. You kind of have to flex your muscle on the short blue lines, but again, it is if you pump it, if you exercise the muscle, you'll see results. So that's kind of the gist of like the blue lines and the red lines. But and it's not me. Like, here's the thing about a birth chart. I should never come to a birth chart reading thinking, I know what I'm going to see. I know the language here. No, curiosity for the win. So it's like, I see X, Y, and Z. Tell me how that lives in your life. Um, and then I can see the birth chart coming alive based on this person's lived experience. So never am I going into a chart saying, you're X, Y, and Z, and that's it. No, 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 no. It's like very much a question driven, answer based dialogue. It's not a monologue. I don't just sit behind a screen and tell people what I see and who they are. They tell me. They tell me their
Right.
biggest struggles. Oh yeah, that short red line, that rules my life, that short red line. That's like my Saturn and my moon, right? It's always there. But I'm in control of it. And when you know it, that it lives there, it's kind of more fun and less work when you actually know what you're living with, right? Instead of saying to myself, like back to me and my moon and Saturn, instead of saying, you're so irresponsible, like, why do you always choose fun and joy and kids and games and, like just really like childish stuff instead of just sitting down and doing your taxes? I mean, I could really beat myself up for those kinds of things because I will always choose joy and fun and kids. Always, 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 always. And then I have to eventually sit down at my table and do my taxes, right? But I don't beat myself up for that anymore. I just laugh and I'm like, oh my God, you are such a raging Leo.
You're, yeah, you're like, you're so predictable.
Yeah. And it takes the shame away, or it takes the hardship of the journey away, in a way, I think, for me, anyways. Once I understood my chart, I'm like, okay, that's all that is. And I am responsible enough so that I do always get my taxes done. So I'm just going to stop beating myself up about it, trust that I
Right.
always get them done. So I will this year too, and go have fun in my backyard with my kid who showed up with his golf clubs.
Right.
You know?
Has there ever been a reading that surprised you? Like maybe you thought of a person one way and then their chart showed up and they were completely different, or something else surprising?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I was taught early days of that level 1 course, never, ever, ever assume what you're going to get when you see a chart. So go into a chart with the utmost curiosity until you actually meet the person. And that was the biggest gift in doing birth chart readings because, again, if you just assume you're going to see something or feel something or know something about somebody, how dare you? Like, they're the ones that had the lived experience. And for many reasons that we don't understand, certain things can be more prominent in their chart than other things, given their life experiences, right? Trauma, or had to move away to Russia as a child, or you have no idea what you're going to hear in a reading. So it completely satiates my curiosity because I get to ask all the questions. So things that really surprise me, well, surprise me or intrigue me is that in families there's always themes. So between the parents of the children and the children's chart, there is always a theme. Not a theme, themes. So there'll be like a Leo Aquarius theme, or there'll be like a mom that has a Leo sun and an Aquarius moon, and then the kid will have like Aquarius Leo vibes. And so there is always this sort of like, I call it like a puzzle, and you're just filling in the pieces. And then a family unit is always just this like masterful like puzzle at the end. It just all comes together. If I'm blessed enough to be able to read everybody's charts in a family, which I have been, that always fascinates me, and it never fails that there's not just like, oh, she's a raging Capricorn, and then over here there's just a raging Libra, and everybody's just bouncing off of each other with no like pattern. There's always a pattern. There's always a family theme.
Interesting.
It's so fascinating. And children. I love when parents come to me to get their children's charts read so that they could have a better understanding and a deeper understanding of what drives them and what motivates them and their learning style and their emotional style, which you already know as a parent. But like Cancer kids, they're very clingy, right? They're very like just want to be home and on you and holding your hand the whole time. And for a fiery parent, maybe that's not like, I don't want to hold your hand. I don't want you on. I need to go and do and be and like hop on my bike and get some exercise. So it's just a nice, I think, a beautiful way to really intimately see your child and understand they were born with these attributes. They are a Cancer. They need a lot of love and encouragement in the early years of them. They need a lot of like clingy time. They need a lot of under the cover time. They need, blah, 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 blah. Whereas a fire child is very challenging to parent if you have like non-fiery parents. They require a lot of energy and it can
Sounds
be
like my
really
husband and I. We're
challenging.
yeah, he's a water, I'm an air, and we have two fire children.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
One's grown up, but one's a teenager.
Yeah. And there's always themes. So you can
Yeah.
think you're all air and your husband's all water. He's going to have some of that. You have some of that. And there is a theme. And typically, I mean, we, in conscious parenting, I think this is natural language, but we parent the children, like we birth the children that we need. And I see it time and time and time again. I don't have children, so I say that sentence very loosely, but it appears to be that way. Like if you were gifted a fire child. Oh, this is a great example, actually. My mom, nowhere remotely close to being a fiery child. And she birthed me, and I'm a raging fire child. Active, sporty, go here, go there, but busy, And her life lesson, you could say, which lives in the planet Saturn, was to be more fiery and more forceful. And so my relationship with my mom is a great example of like someone not knowing about astrology, hello, back in the 70s. And plus she would not be driven towards that at all. But let's just say that we existed now, and my mom was more curious about astrology because it's more of a mainstream thing. And she would learn like, oh, you have this fire child. She needs to move, like do, be, like go, 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 creativity, like blah, blah, blah. And my mom would have witnessed me as sort of like a baby mentor to be more of who she should have been, more fiery, more independent, more pioneering. She was a lot of those things, but it's a really interesting review for me, having just lost my mom in October and caregive for her for a couple of years. So we lived very intimately together. And so it was just fascinating to me to watch her start to understand me, because we were pretty much roommates for a couple of years, like besides a bit of respite home when I would get to come home and stuff. But that was a great example of she birthed a fire child, and she could have witnessed me and went, seems a lot of fun. I'm just going to go with her flow and see what happens here, but she didn't, because it's a different generation back in the 60s.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my mom was a very traditional lady, and for lots of other reasons it didn't happen. But I see it so beautifully, so beautifully.
Yeah. Well, certainly I mean, I'm reflecting on my own family unit as you say that, and I imagine our listeners are doing the same thing. And I think that we've covered a lot of ground.
We sure
Is
have.
there, and I'm excited to have you back again sometime to bring us the next version. And I'll tell people they need to listen to this one first for some basics.
Yeah.
Is there some words of wisdom from the astrology, Shannon, that you want to leave with our audience today?
Astrology wisdom. Well, we didn't even touch down on, and this would be a great next podcast, but we didn't even touch down on the planets flying around actively in the sky right now. So those things that you hear about in social media, like Mercury's retrograde or Gatorade, as everybody's calling it. What does that mean? Oh, Aquarius just moved into Gemini. What does that mean? Oh, Saturn and Neptune went from Pisces into Aries this year. What does that mean? I mean, we are in a spicy, spicy year, astrologically speaking, but it's too much to get in this podcast. But if we do another podcast, we can talk about the actual astrology that's happening boots on the ground in our daily lives with all the planets that are flying around in the sky. And what does that mean? And what does that do to us? And what is reflected back to us? Like what's happening on our planet is so, I mean, reflecting back, planets reflect back what's happening on our planet. What is happening on our planet? We're in the middle of a massive, massive revolution of all kinds of things that we once thought were our foundation, right?
Yeah.
And we're learning, oh, that was just quicksand. Okay, we're on a ride. So if we do another podcast, I can talk about the actual daily shenanigans that go on. And then not just that it reflects back to us, but like what's it doing to your chart? Like,
Right.
what are you living through right now? Because I can see that in a birth chart reading. I can see when you're in the middle of a big change. I can see when transformation is coming down the pipe. I can see when expansion and joy-filled wonder is coming, as a little breath of fresh air in something. So that's the act of astrology that you hear about in social media when people are talking about planets being in retrograde or planets, big outer planets like Uranus and Saturn are shifting signs, and that's a big energetic shift. And people that are very pick up on those shifts will feel it, and it has the potential to kind of rock your world, right? As we're seeing, we don't have to live outside of Canada to witness this around, the world is changing in so many ways, but that's a whole other podcast, the active astrology and what is it doing to your natal birth chart and what collectively is happening out there in the world. And it's wild. I mean, the pandemic, the astrology, it was wild. And those are things we could talk about if we did another podcast, but it's a lot of information for like just an entry level.
Right. So hold tight or start doing some of your own research.
Yeah.
And
what people can do is go to astro.com and type in the information that they have. Again, if you don't have a birth time, it's okay. Just put unknown birth time. And you can start playing around with it. Like, oh, okay, she mentioned a moon sign. It's my emotions. Where is it landing? Oh, it's in a fire sign. It's Aries. I guess that's my hot-headedness. I guess that, oh, my moon sign is in Mars. I guess that's why I lean towards comfort of all kinds when I'm blue or happy, and why cashmere is king, and why I love fine chocolate,
took the words right out of my mouth.
So your audience can go play around with that. And then if we do another podcast about like the active astrology, they can open up their birth chart and maybe follow along a little bit about what's actively happening. But that's a fun place to start, is create your own account with this astro.com. It's free, and punch in your people and get curious. Oh, that's right. Curiosity for the win, Shannon. Imagine ending on that note.
Perfect. It was like it was planned, written in the stars.
Totally.
I couldn't resist.
Totally.
Well,
so
thank
fun.
you. Yeah, thank you so much. It's always just such a super fun conversation to have with you. And we're in summer, and when we're recording this, it's summer.
Leo season.
Yeah, Leo season. We've got a Leo right in front of us here, which is, I think, just great timing.
Yeah, actually, that's really fun timing. And thanks for your curiosity, Shannon, for all things like Death Doula and astrology. Like, I love your curiosity. We definitely are on sync with that. And I just really appreciate the time of like taking for your podcast and your guests to chew on these topics, because it's not for everybody, but you're curious. And I really appreciate that about you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I think my listeners are curious as well. And so this is great, and keep holding on for more fun, enlightening, full of the possibility topics ahead.
Yeah, because it's not all doom and gloom. Like, it is potential, right? So when I use the word revolution, I don't use that word lightly. We are in the middle of a big shift in how we live in the world and how we want to live in the world and how we want to treat people in the world. I think so there's a lot of doom and gloom in the words being used in media and social media and stuff like that. But again, that is another beautiful thing to have astrology in your back pocket, because that's not the language I use. I use revolution as an exciting thing. Like, finally, we might level the playing field, and justice and equality might just be for everybody on the planet, right? Like, what's the matter with that word? But there's a lot of doom and gloom around certain things that are happening and certain words that are used, and it can feel scary, right? But again, the potential is there for a lot of really good change, positive change and growth. But we are living through the gnarly bits of the change and growth, and patriarchy dying, right? Like, it's not an easy, gentle ride, but there are word choices there that can be inspiring versus fear-based, So that's another beautiful attribute about astrology, right?
Yeah, that's great. And Shan, where can people get a hold of you if they'd like to have a birth chart reading?
Yeah, I'm not very active right now on my business account through Instagram just because I'm just going through the journey of grief of losing actually both my parents in the fall, but mainly my mom who I was a caregiver for a couple of years. So I will happily do a birth chart reading. It is my joy of my day if I can do one. And they can just email me. So if you just put my email address in the show notes, that's the best way to get a hold of me. And we can just work out a time and a day that works for them and for me. So yeah, just put my email address in there and
That sounds great. And
yeah.
as everyone knows, I would encourage that because it's just such a nice, it's some nice data points and just a fun, if you're not even looking for data, but you're looking for a warm, juicy conversation with a girlfriend, this is it as well. So it just ticks many boxes.
That's amazing.
Anyway, so thank you so much again. And thank you to all my listeners.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you again for listening. If you liked the podcast, please like and subscribe and follow and do all the things wherever you're watching from. It really helps more people to find this content. So I really appreciate that. And wasn't that just such a fun conversation? I think we used the word fun multiple times, the most I've used in any podcast yet, I'm sure. And it felt really just like the best summer podcast. And I hope you enjoyed it as well. And if you want to get in touch with Shannon, her contact details are in the show notes. And have a fabulous week, everyone. I look forward to talking to you next week.